At Sunday dinner, my nephew slurred, "Mom says you're a walking wallet. No one actually likes you." Laughter echoed. I quietly left. 2 days later, I made a quiet change that had the entire family group chat exploding in all caps. I never liked Sunday dinners, but I never missed one either. For years, I showed up like clockwork, casserole in hand, fake smile locked in place. We were that kind of family. Tradition over comfort. Lately, though, I'd been feeling more like a prop in someone else's play, a background character with a checkbook. My sister Heather always made a scene, loud, performative, always with a new story about how hard single motherhood was, how her son was gifted, misunderstood, underappreciated, and somehow every story ended with her needing something from me. A loan, a ride, a babysitter, a quick Venmo. I used to tell myself she'd do the same for me, but deep down I knew better. Last Sunday, everything cracked. We were at Mom and Dad's. Everyone gathered around the table. I had just passed the green beans when my 12-year-old nephew Tyler blurted out something that stopped time. "Mom says you're just a walking wallet. No one actually likes you." He laughed loud. And then, unbelievably, the rest of them laughed too. Not all of them, but enough. A cousin snorted. Heather didn't even flinch. She just sipped her wine like someone had read a fortune cookie. No one corrected him. No one apologized. I didn't say anything. I stood up, left my plate untouched, and walked out the front door without a word. My keys were in my purse. I drove home in silence, shaking, but not sad. Not really. It was something else, something colder, like I'd finally woken up. They thought I'd just keep showing up, keep paying for Tyler's school trips, Heather's emergencies, the broken faucet, the unpaid rent, the birthday party. I was the reliable one, the one who had it together, the one who wouldn't say no. They forgot what happens when the reliable one gets tired. 2 days later, I made a change. Not loud, not dramatic, quiet, but irreversible. First, I pulled up the group chat, the one labeled Family, No Drama. I clicked on Heather's Venmo request for Tyler's Halloween costume, $95. He wanted to be some video game character. I hit decline. Then I posted just 3 words, "No more handouts." Silence for about a minute. Then the chat exploded. All caps accusations. Heather asked if I was hacked. Mom asked what was wrong. Tyler sent a row of crying emojis. My brother said I was being cruel. I didn't respond. I just watched it burn. And that was only the beginning. The first real fallout didn't come in the group chat. It came the next morning with a knock on my door. I live in a small cul-de-sac. Quiet, no drama. So when I opened the door and found Heather standing there in yoga pants and rage, coffee in hand like it was armor, I didn't invite her in. She started talking fast, like she always does when she's trying to control the narrative. Said Tyler was just being a kid. Said I was overreacting. Said she was shocked I'd make him feel guilty over a joke. I just leaned against the doorframe and let her go on. Then she pivoted. She always pivots into guilt mode. Said she'd had a hard month, that things were tight, that she didn't want to ask, but her landlord was threatening eviction again. Said she needed me. I told her I needed something too, respect, and then I shut the door. That was the day I realized Heather wasn't just entitled. She genuinely believed she was owed, that I owed her for being family, maybe for being the one who had it harder. I don't know, but I do know she didn't think I'd stick to my word. The second hit came Thursday. Dad called me during lunch. He was calm, which is worse than yelling. Asked if we could talk. Said Mom was upset that Heather told her I was cutting the family off. So I met them for coffee. They were already seated when I got there. Mom looked nervous. Dad looked tired. They didn't come at me angrily. Not at first. Just asked what was going on, why I was acting cold. I told them the truth, that I'd been feeling used, that Heather crossed a line, that Tyler's comment wasn't just a kid being a kid. It was a reflection of what she says when I'm not around. They didn't argue much, but they didn't defend me either. Mom said, "Heather's struggling." Dad said, "You're doing well. You can afford to help." And that's when I realized something else. They weren't neutral in this. They'd gotten used to it too, me being the fixer, the helper, the bank. So I made another quiet change. I logged into the joint savings account I'd set up with Mom years ago, originally meant to help with their retirement. Over time, it had become Heather's unofficial bailout fund. I emptied it, transferred it to a new account, my name only. That night, I got a message from Heather, just one sentence. "You're seriously doing this?" I didn't reply. The next morning, she posted something passive-aggressive on Facebook. One of those fake deep quotes about how money changes people, and some sisters are only generous for appearances. But I didn't care, because something had shifted in me, something final, and I had only just started. By the following weekend, it was obvious Heather was unraveling. She tried to keep up the image, posting her usual curated family photos and inspirational quotes about strength and sisterhood. But under the surface, things were slipping fast. I kept my distance. I didn't speak to her, but people started coming to me. A cousin texted asking if I was okay because Heather had been ranting at a birthday party. One of her friends, someone I barely knew, DM'd me to say, "I don't know what's going on between you and Heather, but she's saying some wild stuff." I didn't answer anyone. I didn't need to. I knew Heather's game. If she couldn't control the narrative with me, she'd control it everywhere else. But this time, I wasn't giving her anything to fight against. That silence, it aided her. Then came the school fundraiser. It was an annual thing at Tyler's middle school. Each year, I donated a decent chunk, covered the silent auction prizes, sometimes the catering. Heather always made a show of it, telling people how Aunt Anna makes this all possible, like I was some benevolent bank. But this year, I did nothing. No check, no email, just watched the calendar quietly move past the deadline. I heard through the grapevine that Heather had scrambled last minute, calling people, asking for help, trying to patch the holes. The event still happened, but it didn't go smoothly. One of the moms posted afterward about disorganization and unmet expectations. The school's newsletter listed the donation total, lowest in 6 years. Heather's name was on the volunteer list right at the top. Later that night, she texted me. "Tyler asked why you hate him now." I didn't answer. I just sat with it, let her feel the weight of it, because she was using him again, twisting the knife, trying to manipulate me through guilt. A few days later, Dad called. He was calm at first, but underneath I could hear the pressure building. He said Heather was in a bad place, that Tyler's after-school programs had been cut, that the landlord was threatening eviction again, that Heather had come to them crying. I listened, let him talk. When he finished, he asked, "Is this really what you want, Anna?" I said, "No, but it's what needs to happen." He didn't respond to that, just sighed and said, "Okay." That Sunday, I didn't go to dinner. First time in 12 years. Not even during the pandemic did I skip. I dropped food off on the porch once, waved through the window, but this time, nothing. Just silence. Mom sent a photo. It was the table, a little emptier than usual. Heather was smiling in the corner of the shot, holding a wine glass. The caption read, "We miss you." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and sent an email to both my parents. In it, I outlined everything. Every cent I had given Heather over the last 5 years. I'd kept records, bank transfers, PayPal screenshots, texts requesting money. $42,830. Not a dime repaid. I told them I loved them, but I was done. That I wasn't doing this anymore. I wasn't punishing Heather. I was protecting myself. I told them I didn't expect them to take sides, but I wouldn't be guilted into funding her life anymore. Mom didn't respond. Dad replied with 2 words, "Understood." Then silence. Heather disappeared for 3 days. No posts, no messages, no back-channel drama, just quiet, until Wednesday morning when I got a text from an unknown number. It was a screenshot, a loan application. Heather had applied for a personal loan and listed my name as her financial reference, without asking, without even telling me. I stared at the screen, almost laughing. She was desperate, and she was starting to spiral. I didn't reply. Instead, I made one more change, one she wouldn't see coming. After I saw the loan application, I didn't freak out. That surprised even me. A year ago, I probably would have called Heather in a rage, demanded answers, maybe even tried to fix things again. But now, it just felt done. I flagged the application with the bank, removed myself as a reference, and blocked the number. Plain, quiet, but it made something crystal clear. She wasn't just entitled anymore. She was reckless. That afternoon, I took a long walk and made a decision I'd been circling for months. I called my lawyer. A while back, I'd named Heather and Tyler as partial beneficiaries in my will. It wasn't a huge amount, but enough to matter. I'd set it up years ago, when I thought we were a close-knit family, back when I thought helping them was love. Now I knew better. By Thursday morning, their names were removed. I redirected that portion to a scholarship fund at Tyler's school. An anonymous donation, one that would help kids who actually needed support and whose parents didn't treat people like walking wallets. It was poetic in a way. Tyler would probably never know, but some other kid might get the shot he never appreciated. I wasn't done. Next, I called our parents' financial advisor. I'd been helping manage some of their retirement investments for years, pro bono, just to make sure they weren't taken advantage of. And, to no one's surprise, Heather had borrowed from Mom and Dad a few times too. So, I made a recommendation. We froze any joint access funds, set up protections so Heather couldn't dip into their savings with another sob story. I was polite, professional. The advisor agreed without hesitation. And then came the surprise I didn't plan. Friday morning, I got a call from my boss. She told me someone had called the office pretending to be from HR at a company I used to work for, asking innocent questions about my current salary and benefits. Said it was for a background check, but it didn't add up. The timing, the tone, HR flagged it and reported it up the chain. My heart sank. It had Heather written all over it. She wanted to know if I was hiding money, if I'd lied about not having extra. She was digging now. That same night, I got a message on Instagram. It was from one of Heather's coworkers, a woman I barely knew. She said, "Sorry to get involved, but Heather's been saying some wild things at work. That you cheated her out of an inheritance or something. It's getting weird." I stared at the message, then typed back one sentence. Give it a week. Because I knew something Heather didn't. I knew Mom and Dad were planning something. They'd been too quiet, too polite, which, in our family, meant someone was about to get called out, and Heather wouldn't see it coming. By Sunday night, I knew something had shifted. No group chat messages, no dinner invitation, no passive-aggressive texts from Heather. Just radio silence. I figured they were regrouping, maybe finally realizing I wasn't backing down. Then Monday morning, it hit. Mom called me at 7:12 a.m. No greeting, no small talk. We need to talk, today. I met them at their place. Dad was already seated, reading glasses on, manila folder in front of him. That folder had the same financial statements I'd sent. Every dollar Heather had ever borrowed, now printed and highlighted. Heather was sitting on the other couch. She looked different. Not disheveled, but off, like she'd lost control of a script she'd rehearsed too many times. Mom asked me to sit. Then she told Heather they'd reviewed everything. Not just my letter, but all the money, all the favors, even the things she told them that never added up. She tried to interrupt, but Dad cut her off. "We've been covering for you for years, Heather," he said. "It's over." Heather went red. Started in with the usual. Stress, Tyler, single mom life, how Anna doesn't get it, but they didn't budge. Dad calmly explained they were putting legal boundaries in place. No more loans, no more bailouts, no more involvement in her rent, her bills, her anything. And then Mom dropped the bomb. They were putting their house in a trust, and I would be co-trustee, not Heather. She'd still inherit, but nothing would be released without dual approval. Heather lost it. Said I had manipulated them. Said this was revenge. Said I was trying to turn her own parents against her. Dad stood up, told her to stop. And then Tyler walked in. He'd been waiting outside. I didn't know he was coming. He looked confused, nervous. He asked if he was in trouble. Before anyone could answer, Heather snapped at him to go wait in the car, but Mom stopped her. She looked Tyler in the eye and asked him if he remembered what he said at dinner that day. He went quiet, then mumbled something about it being just a joke. Mom said, "You don't joke about people who take care of you." Heather tried to change the subject, said Tyler shouldn't be involved, but the damage was already done. He looked uncomfortable, and I saw something in his face that surprised me. Shame. He left the room, and the adults kept talking. By the end of that conversation, Heather wasn't just angry. She was cornered. There would be no more financial safety nets, no secret Venmos, no quiet help from Mom and Dad. She was finally on her own, and for the first time in a very, very long time, so was I. Free. The week that followed was quieter than I expected. No late-night messages, no surprise calls, no group chat tantrums, just silence. I thought maybe Heather was doubling down, that she'd go full scorched earth, start telling people I was trying to ruin her life. I even braced for some kind of Tyler-fueled drama at school or online. But nothing came until Sunday. I hadn't planned to go to dinner again, obviously. I was halfway through folding laundry when Mom texted, "We need you here today, please." I stared at the screen for a while before I replied. I asked if Heather was going to be there. Mom said yes. I said I'd think about it, but something told me I should go. Not because I owed anyone anything. I didn't. But because I needed to see what was left of the mess I'd walked away from. When I arrived, the house was quiet. No smell of food, no chatter, no clinking dishes. Just Mom standing at the door, looking more serious than I'd ever seen her. Inside, Dad was seated in the living room, and next to him, Heather and Tyler. I didn't sit. I stayed standing. Heather stood too, awkwardly. There was a pause, then she said it. I was wrong. No drama, no tears. Just 3 words I never thought I'd hear from her. She said she hadn't realized how much she had come to rely on me, that she blurred the line between sister and support system, that Tyler's comment came from what he'd heard at home, her home, and that was on her. She apologized for the loan application, for involving my name, said she withdrew it after I flagged it, claimed she'd been desperate, but admitted that didn't make it right. Then Tyler spoke quietly. He said he didn't know what it meant when he called me a wallet, that he thought it was just something adults joked about, but that after everything, he got it now, that what he said was messed up. Mom and Dad didn't say much. They just let it happen. Let Heather fumble through her explanation, let Tyler say his piece, and then they both waited. I could have gone off, could have listed everything I did for them, every time I was taken for granted, every way they used me, but I didn't. I told them I accepted the apology, that I didn't hate them, that I just wasn't willing to be in the same role anymore. I said I'd be around, but not as their safety net, that if we were going to be a family, it had to be real, not transactional. Heather nodded. Tyler looked relieved. Dinner was awkward, but calm. Simple food, no wine, no jokes, just real conversation. For the first time in years, I left without feeling hollow. No weight on my chest, no resentments piled up in my throat. Something had shifted, finally, and not just in me. We were done playing roles. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And that was enough. A few months later, I got a letter from the school. A thank you note from the scholarship fund I'd contributed to anonymously. It included a story about the first recipient, a 7th grader who'd lost his dad the year before and whose mom worked 3 jobs to keep him in school. He'd written a short paragraph at the bottom himself, thanking whoever had made it possible for him to join the art program. I read it twice and cried, not from guilt, not from regret, but from a quiet sense of peace. I'd thought cutting my family off financially would leave me bitter, isolated, alone. Instead, it opened a space inside me I didn't know I needed. A space for me, for my own life, my own choices, my own joy, unconnected to obligation. Things with Heather didn't magically fix overnight. She still stumbled, a late bill here, a missed call there, but she stopped asking for money, stopped guilt-tripping me into giving. And little by little, she started doing better, found a part-time job that became full-time. Tyler got into a local scholarship program, the same one I'd funded. He never mentioned it, and neither did I. Some things are better left unspoken. Mom and Dad started seeing me differently, too. Not as the responsible one who could fix everything, but as their daughter. Just Anna again. We began having dinners without expectation, without tension. Sometimes Heather joined, sometimes not. But when she did, it wasn't an act anymore. She'd help cook, bring dessert, listen. And sometimes, in those quiet moments, I'd catch her watching me, not with resentment, but with something softer. Understanding, maybe, or gratitude. It took losing everything she thought she could take for granted to see the truth of what love costs when it's one-sided. I don't think she'll ever say thank you outright. That's not Heather's way, but I see it in her actions now, in the effort, in the small gestures, in the quiet peace that's finally returned to our family. As for me, I've stopped being the walking wallet, stopped being the fixer, the bank, the fallback plan. I'm just Anna, sister, daughter, aunt, finally whole without having to buy my place at the table. And for the first time in my adult life, that's enough. It's more than enough.